This is Hardy Brute with another run of Dungeon Warfare 3. There's been some big updates to the game week by week, and with each point 1 upgrade, they also add in a new dungeon as well. So we've got a ton of new levels to investigate. These dungeons are all tier 1, so they should be much easier than what we've been currently playing at, which is tier 2. But I'm going to place them at the top here, away from our bonuses at the bottom, because we don't need them to have 30% less health, or have the traps being 20% cheaper. Hopefully we can save those buffs for the next round of dungeons that we get. So let's get it started. We're not going to get any unlocks for these dungeons, but we are going to get a ton of XP, a lot of soul fragments, and we're going to get the 3 gems for upgrades as well. We've got the tier 2 blood, and now there's blood golems as well, when you kill too many enemies back to back at the same spot. We've got a long path on the side here. If we trigger the boulder here in the middle, the enemies will choose to go down the middle instead. And we also have to be aware of a tomb in the middle that will release enemies and make the path even shorter if we break it. But let's change our Q trap. I'm still not a big fan of the bomb, but let's try these summoned skeletons instead. And for each one of these maps, I want to focus just on one single trap, leveling it up as high as we can. Currently we can only get to around level 14, but after a map or two, I think we'll be close enough to get 15s. We've got 2 of the 3 charms unlocked. Necromancy will summon skeletons on kill every 5 seconds, and the poison just adds 4 damage as poison. For tier upgrades, we got the Flesh Seeker, 100% more damage to non-armor. The Repeater fires a total of 9 darts, but the cooldown is doubled. I like that one quite a bit. The Hardened Materials, 50% more damage and 30% faster fire rate. That one's pretty good too. Spell Lock, enemies can't use spells or skills for 10 seconds. Compound, each consecutive hit does 20% more damage. I like that one a lot too, it goes really well with the Repeater. And Call, deal 100% more damage to enemies with less than 50% health. And because we just unlocked the Soul Harvester, we can see the other tier upgrades as well. The Harvest debuff is stronger, increases its range, or we get 3 more base, and the base is already 5 I believe. Each upgrade to the trap makes it 5 gold cheaper, but the base gold is 300, and that's already pretty cheap for a trap. And you want to put the Soul Harvester in choke points, but you don't really want to stack them together. Each monster only has 1 soul to harvest, and if you have multiple Soul Harvesters back to back, they don't really do anything. So being cheaper is helpful, but it's really not that helpful. You upgrade it mainly for the tier power. And we got the Repeater upgrade on our darts, giving it +1 range, making this hallway even better for our kill lane. I would like to upgrade the tier on our Soul Harvester before we get too much lost income. But let's rush the waves down, place a trap in the middle. We can always delete that barricade and create a new path for us. Let's also place a second Soul Harvester to cover the entire lane. And the enemy's actually being stopped and even pushed back here, which is pretty surprising. I think it's because the Necromancy charm, every 5 seconds will summon a skeleton, and I think that cooldown works on each and every dart turret, which is pretty OP. Originally I was going to delete the barricade, trigger the boulder, and force the enemies downwards after they start to build up at the top here, so that we could take advantage of all the harpoons on the side the map gave us for free. But we don't even have to go that far. Our OP charm is kinda just carrying us through this entire map. With the updates and changes to the game, they've also updated our Necromancer friend. So now he in fact does have a ranged attack, instead of just using his club to beat down the enemy. It also says that he bolsters their friends, which I would assume means buff the allies, but it doesn't seem like he does do that. And to be honest, if he did, he'd be pretty overloaded. He's a very good wall, he can attack ground and air, and he's a really strong unit overall, so we don't really need him to be buffing the units as well. The skeletons that we spawn, or create from the dart trap, already have a ton of HP. But I really like the dart upgrades. Doing more and more damage for each consecutive hit is a really fun concept. We got our 3 gems, 26k XP, and 400 soul fragments. We got a lot from that one map. Also got a few land cards, and another dungeon as well, that's pretty cool. The game doesn't actually tell you what dungeon it is though. It tells you its name, but doesn't tell you its difficulty or tier level. So let's just give it 30% less health, and it's actually a labyrinth, not a dungeon. That's a key difference, because the labyrinth changes every single time you play it, and I think it's designed more for grinding and replayability. And let's use all of the runes we've got. We're trying to get that multiplier above 2.0, because that's some of the objective requirements in our previous maps. The enemy goes straight for the core, over some destructible floors, which are conveniently placed next to a bunch of explosive barrels. I like the dart trap quite a bit, especially that charm, which is very, very strong. Well, let's change the focus to the spike trap. We still can't reach 15, but we should be able to after this level. In the upgrades we can choose, Exploitable, a debuff to make them take 20% more damage, Focused, 100% more damage with only 5 enemies hit, and Swift, 20% more damage and 30% fire speed. Faster enemies can't heal, Converge pull the enemies in, and the Opening Blow, deal 100% more damage to enemies at full HP. Let's pick the Opening Blow, the more damage overall, and the faster attacks as well. So it's just going to do one big hit at the start, which should one-shot most of the enemies honestly. Unlike the dart trap that only gained damage per levels, the spike trap gains damage and reload speed. Let's max out these spikes with a tier 2 soul harvester in the front, trying to give us a cash advantage at the start of the wave. But so far it does look like it's one-shotting them, which is pretty nice. And you can actually feel that reload speed. But let's make a third one as well. We can continue to speed up until they break through, getting some extra cash just from speeding up the waves. But now we've got 3 max spikes, and they actually did break through finally. Instead of wasting traps, I think I'm just going to let them keep going. Wait till they get to the end. Block them off at the end with some skeletons. And then activate all the explosive barrels, sending any that survived back across these spikes we've set up. And we've only got 2 more skeletons left, so this looks like a pretty good time to explode the barrels. We don't actually have any defenses past the barrels, so if they did end up breaking through, we'd probably lose instantly. But now they're going to be forced to take the long way across, with the saw blade as well. And the saw blade has a very long cooldown, but it's a very powerful trap. It spins and pushes the enemies around, pushing them into the pit. That's also going to be the next trap we unlock when we go back to the tier 2s, so I'm pretty excited for that. But let's move our Necromancer to the end here, for any stragglers that actually get through. Upgrade these spikes as much as we can. The carts do push them back, but they only do around 4 damage, they're not doing a lot of damage. They're kind of just keeping them in place. Unfortunately, we don't actually have any charms for these spikes unlocked yet, but I'm sure we could get 1 or 2 if we went back into some of the harder objectives, which should be much easier after doing these series of maps, giving us XP, giving us levels, and a ton of soul fragments. I plan to go on a big shopping spree after these maps, as well as to rearrange our map, getting the most out of the debuffs. And the enemy is right outside our core, but luckily we had 1 more explosive barrel, and the explosion doesn't actually hurt our own units. And with that little pushback, I think we've got this map in the bag now, because they have to walk over our series of traps that we've been slowly leveling up, and they still have to get past the rails as well. Out of all 3 queued traps that we have so far, I think the Summon Skeletons is by far the strongest, stopping the enemies in their tracks. We also had some enemies trapped on an island, and we took them all out with a barrel. But we got 3 gems, 48k XP. XP is increased a lot by how fast you actually speed up the waves. We got a level up, 11 more gems, 100 more starting gold, and we also got a forest as well. But let's go on to the third map, the Bubble Pop. Let's activate all of the runes, and the Blood Rune actually leveled up. So now our multiplier is 2.1 times, and we can do some of those objectives that we missed out on before. But the path is very long here to the core. The current path is only blocked by units, but we can always place a barricade there, extending the path a bit. And because this path is so long, I think I want to go all in on the poison trap this time. And because of that level up, I think we have enough gems to finally hit level 15. And we get the tier 3 as well. We've got the Splinter, more poison damage, fires 5 bolts, but it won't target the same enemy that's already poisoned. Lingering, it does a lot more poison damage, but it also takes longer. Potent does a bit more poison damage, but it's over a shorter duration, so it's a stronger effect. The Midas, a bit more poison damage, but it increases the bounty. Petrifying, a bit more poison damage, a longer duration, and it gives the enemies armor, but they can also become statues when they die. Vicious is more poison damage with no negative. The Runic gives more duration and damage based on how many runes you're using. And the Omega, 500% more damage, and a 50-second longer duration. And I'm not sure how strong that's actually going to be, because you're increasing the damage, but you're also making it take longer. So let's try the Omega with the statues and see how it goes. Starting off the wave with our tier 3 over here. It's going to cost us 1200. That's pretty spendy. Because of how the poison trap is designed to do damage over time and take out the enemy while they're traveling, I don't think I'm actually going to use any soul harvesters. It's much harder to take out the enemy in specified locations where we're not doing a big burst attack, so I think this soul harvest is just a waste of money. The Necromancer's range attack goes beyond the bridge here, making it much more useful than before, and we can actually see some statues here as well. The enemies become gray, they stop moving, and hopefully they'll slow the enemy down, giving us more time to do poison and a longer duration. But it does seem like an enemy comes up behind them, whacks them one time, and then they get destroyed. So I'm not really sure how useful that actually is. It does look very cool, but I think there's some better tier upgrades besides the statue one. The new levels also add in some new enemies, in this case being the red balloons, which look very similar to the balloons from Balloon Tower Defense. But let's trigger the barrel, and we're actually being overrun a decent amount here. So let's keep throwing down as many poison traps as possible. And we can always throw down a barricade if we have the cash to extend the wave here. But a few times we're just barely destroying the red balloon before it touches our core, and we only have 1 life. So we've had some close calls so far, but I think we can stabilize if we get past this part of the wave. One of the major benefits of using the poison traps though, is that the combo meter just keeps on going up higher and higher every single time. We've maintained a star level of 2, and around 80 or 90 kills. At the first star level, you get 500 free gold, and at star level 4, you get 1000 free gold, which can be a big difference in the run. The enemy now has doors, which explode on death, but that's actually helping us more than it's helping them. They can't really blast a path open for them to go, because they just have a long and snaking path. They've also got balloon men, which unfortunately our poison traps cannot target, but our skeletons and our necromancer can. And if we destroy the balloon men over the lava, we don't have to deal with the units inside. But we do have to be very careful not to let any one of them through. We're at the final wave, and I think our armada of skeletons at the core is enough to protect us. Our necromancer is also doing a very nice job of just acting as a wall. I was a bit disappointed in the statue trade. Giving the enemies armor shouldn't have affected our poison damage, but the statues themselves didn't actually slow them down at all. We got our 3 gems, 400 souls, and 31k XP. And I think we got enough time for 1 more level. And I'd also like to look at the 15 tier upgrades for the spiked and the dart trap as well. We also got a forest and a desert. But let's go on to the 4th map. It looks like the Scythe Rune leveled up. So instead of 10% enemy movement speed and spawn rate, it's now 13% movement speed and 12% spawn rate. Which isn't a huge difference, but does boost the multiplier to 2.25 times. And the enemy goes straight for the core, so we're definitely going to want to put some barricades down here. And for this trap, I think we're going to go all in on the bolt trap this time. But let's look at the level 15 tier 3 dart first. We've got access to the double barrel. For 1500, fires 2 darts at once. That's pretty strong. Or the soul steal. Each kill increases the damage by 2% up to 500%. The tier 3 of the spike, the repeater, Traps activate twice for only 1,000, that's pretty cheap. The Searing Spike increases the damage by 50% and sets enemies on fire, also for 1,000. Both of those are very, very good. The Bolt Trap Charm increase the base damage +1 per tier upgrade. We can choose the Barbed, 20% more damage and 50% of that damage as bleed. The Bodkin, 30% more damage and +1 damage against armor. The Skullcracker, 40% more damage, and after killing 30 units, they'll stun 1 unit. Skewering Shot, +1 piercing. The Giant, 2% more damage based on the enemy health up to 200%. And the Ballista, 100% more damage, 50% slower fire rate, and +1 range. In the Tier 3 splitting, bolts will split into 2 smaller bolts, dealing 20% of the original damage. That's decent. Or the Volley fires 2 volleys per activation, 8 bolts total. I like that one a lot. In addition to the Skewering, which gives us penetration, and the Barb bolts, which give us some bleeding damage as well. So we should be doing some big hits on activation. But let's block the path here, create a longer path down the middle, and the chokehold is definitely in the bottom left here. Now let's place a barricade to make the choke a bit longer, put a bolt trap at the bottom and the top, upgrading as much as we can, and also including a soul harvest, so we can maximize the income that the bottom trap and the top are going to make. But just like the poison trap, the bolt trap only gains damage per level up. Both of our bolts currently have the tier 1 upgrade, so they both have the bleed effect, but the next upgrade costs 1200 to get the piercing, and an extra 2000 to get the double attack. So hopefully we can make some cash throughout these waves, and upgrade them to full. But I really like these summon skeletons. The cooldown just gets better and better, and it really keeps the enemies in places that you want them to stay. They can also save you as a last resort, throwing them at the core if you need to. Whereas the snare will only take out one enemy, and the explosive one might actually just push them into your core. So we got our first tier 2 and our second tier 2. So now we have piercing on the bolts. And we're pretty close to our second 2000, our first tier 3. Let's upgrade the bottom one closest to the Soul Harvester first, so we can maximize our income. The bottom bolt now attacks twice, with 8 bolts total. And it just decimates anything it attacks, which is pretty awesome. We've got a big wall of skeletons, and our Necromancer's actually taken pot shots throughout this entire time, but it's just pretty funny. But this is a longer wave up to 14. The last few maps only had around 12, I think. And we're 100 gold short here. Let's speed up the wave, get the cash. And wait. Cannot build any more of this tier. I see. So tier 3 is very powerful, but you can only have one of them. And that adds more elements of strategy, I suppose. But they're so expensive, you could probably only get 2 to 3 in one single map anyways. The Battering Ram was also added, a vehicle unit that when damaged actually drops units along its path, and can be very hard to actually deal with. It got pretty much to our core, and for some reason they all exploded, and I'm not really sure why. But if they hadn't exploded there, we probably would have lost. And now the wave sort of reset, but we're fighting armored units now. And the bolt traps actually do pretty nicely against the armor. They've got a very high base damage, but I'm not sure if the bleed is actually being effective or useful. The armor is a flat damage reduction, and the carts that are going around, who used to do 4 damage, aren't doing any damage to the dark gray units, but they are still slowing them down and pushing them back slightly, giving us time for our bolts to do some work. So this looks like the last part of the big wave. We've got 3 to 4 siege engines left, and if we can get past this, then we'll be gravy in the navy. But we got 2 of the siege down, 3 of them, and this is the final siege. Let's get our Necro to fall back, and the big difference maker here was that we'd upgraded all of our bolts past the first section here. And the only thing we have left is a bunch of armored units, and they can't even make it past our skeletons and the kill zone. But the carts are really trying their best to take them out. Hitting them again and again for 0 damage though. We got 3 more gems, and an insane amount of XP. Almost 300k. And of course 400 soul fragments. But we go from level 11 all the way to level 14. 39 more gems, 300 more starting. We gained 4 levels, 500 more starting gold, and doubled our soul fragments. So I'm definitely going to spend some time spending the fragments and rearranging our map. But I hope you enjoyed. If you'd like to support me, please leave a like, please subscribe. And I'll see you later.